Hello, mathematicians. In the previous video, we talked about sequences. And remember, a sequence is an infinitely long list of numbers. So for example, we could have a sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we could keep on counting forever. So that is one sequence. Now, if we take the terms of the sequence and add them up, this creates what's called a series. So we can use a sequence to create a series. So let's look at an example. We'll have the sequence Sn equals 3n for n equals 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, first of all, let's review how does this sequence start. The first term is found by plugging in n equals 1 to Sn. So our first term is 3. Our next term is found by plugging 2 in here. So we get 6, then 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and so on. Okay, so now that we know the terms of our sequence, let's add them up to get the terms of our series. The first term of our series is this right here. It's just 3. The second term of the series is the sum of our first two terms of the sequence. So we take 3, we add 6, and we get 9. The third term of our series, we find that by adding up the first 3 terms of our sequence. So we've got 3 plus 6 plus 9, or 18. Now we could just keep on going. So to find the nth term of the series, we're going to add up the first n terms of the sequence. Next, let's look at an example that has some real life implications if you take ibuprofen. So the half-life of ibuprofen is about 2 hours. We'll just say that it's exactly 2 hours for this example. So what does it mean when we say that the half-life is 2 hours? That means that if you take 400 milligrams of ibuprofen right now, then in 2 hours, you'll have half that much left. So you'll have 200 milligrams left in your body in 2 hours. After another 2 hours, then you'll have half of 200 left, you'll have 100 left. And another 2 hours later, you'll have half of that left, you'll have 50 milligrams left. And it'll just keep going down until there's just trace amounts of ibuprofen left in your body. Okay, so suppose that you take one 400 milligram pill of ibuprofen every 4 hours. After your 4th pill, how much ibuprofen will you have in your system? All right, so let's define Qn to represent the quantity in milligrams of ibuprofen in your system after the nth pill. Okay, so let's start off with Q1. So Q1 is the amount of ibuprofen in your system after the first pill. So you take one pill, that's 400 milligrams, then let's pretend it gets immediately absorbed. You'll have 400 milligrams of ibuprofen in your system because it's a 400 milligram pill. Now let's calculate Q2. So this is the amount of ibuprofen in your system after your second pill. So when you take your second pill, then you get immediately hit with 400 milligrams. Plus you have the amount left over from the first pill. So that was 400 milligrams divided by 4. And it's divided by 4 because every 4 hours means that 2 half-lives have gone by. So remember, if we start with 400 milligrams, after 2 hours, we have 200 milligrams left. And that means after 4 hours, we have 1/4 of that left. We have 100 milligrams left. So Q2 is 400 plus 400 divided by 4. So we've got 400 plus 100 equals 500 milligrams of ibuprofen in your system. Next, let's look at Q3. So to find Q3, we'll take the amount from the third pill plus the leftover amount from your second pill plus the leftover amount from your first pill. So the amount from your third pill is 400 milligrams. The leftover amount from your second pill is 400 divided by 4, because again, 2 half-lives have passed. And then the leftover amount from your first pill is 400 divided by 16, because now 8 hours have passed. That's 4 half-lives. So that is how we get 16 on the bottom there. Okay, so if we add these numbers up, we get 525 milligrams of ibuprofen in your body. All right, now finally we can get closer to our question. Our question was, after your fourth pill, how much ibuprofen will you have in your system? So now we can calculate Q4, and we're starting to see the pattern here. So Q4 is the amount of ibuprofen in your system after the fourth pill. So we need to take the amount we need to take the amount from the fourth pill, which is 400. Then we'll add on the amount left over from the third pill, which is 400 divided by 4. Next, we'll add on the amount left over from the second pill, which is 400 divided by 16. And finally, we'll have the amount left over from the very first pill. So we'll have 400 over 64. So we get 531.25 milligrams of ibuprofen in your body. Okay, so we can see that going from just 1 pill to 2 pills spread out over 4 hours, we increase by 100 milligrams. And then when we let another 4 hours pass and take another pill, then we get up to 525 milligrams. And if we let another 4 hours pass and take another pill, we get up to 531.25 milligrams. So we can see that the amount of ibuprofen in our bloodstream is increasing over time. And if you just keep taking a pill every 4 hours, then the amount of ibuprofen will continue to increase. However, we can see that the increase is getting smaller and smaller as you take more pills as more time passes. Okay, so in general, we can see that our rule here is Qn is equal to 400 plus 400 times 1/4 plus 400 times 1/4 squared plus, and then we get all the way up to 400 times 1/4 to the n-1. Okay, so this is our rule for calculating Qn. In other words, this tells us how much ibuprofen you'll have left in your body after taking your nth pill, assuming that you're taking 1 400 milligram pill every 4 hours. So this here, this calculation here, is our answer to this question here. Okay, so Qn is equal to this equation here. Now let's apply that to figure out, after 10 hours, how much ibuprofen is in your system. All right, so our rule was that Qn is equal to 400 plus 400 times 1/4 plus 400 times 1/4 squared plus all the way up to plus 400 times 1/4 to the n-1. So if we want to apply this to find the amount after your 10th pill, we're looking for Q10. So we'll have 400 plus 400 times 1/4 plus 400 times 1/4 squared plus all the way up to 400 times 1/4 to the n-1, so 10 minus 1 or 9. Okay, so this is the amount of ibuprofen left in your body after the 10th pill. Now, adding up all these numbers, punching them all in your calculator may not be the most fun thing. So let's find a shortcut to add up these 10 numbers. So to find the shortcut, we'll start with this equation for the amount in your system after the 10th pill. Now, the trick that we'll do is we will subtract off 0.25 times Q10. Okay, so if we subtract off 0.25 times Q10, then on the left-hand side, we have Q10 minus 1/4 Q10. And on the right-hand side, here we've got, this part is Q10. And then this part is 0.25 Q10. Now we can simplify this this left-hand side. 1 minus 0.25, that gives us 0.75. So we're going to rewrite this as 0.75 times Q10. So we rewrite that, and now let's expand out this 0.25 times Q10. What is 0.25 times Q10? Well, we know that all of this here was Q10, so let's go ahead and write out 0.25 times Q10. So Q10 is 400 plus all this. So let's take the first term here and multiply it by 1/4. So we have 400 times 1/4. And then we'll have our next term times 1/4 plus our next term times 1/4 all the way down. So we'll have 0.75 times Q10 equals, here's Q10, and then this part is 0.25 Q10. All right, now we can see that a whole bunch of stuff is going to cancel out. So in particular, we see that we have 400 times 1/4 minus 400 times 1/4. So those cancel. And these will keep canceling out all the way down till we get to 400 times 1/4 to the 9, and we'll have another 400 times 1/4 to a 9, and that'll leave just 400 minus 400 times 0.25 to the 10. So 0.75 times Q10 is equal to 400 minus 400 times 0.25 to the 10. So now we can see we don't have to add up 10 whole numbers. In order to find Q10, we just need to add up 2 numbers, because now this tells us that Q10 is equal to right-hand side divided by 0.75. Okay, so here is our shortcut formula for finding Q10. And now we might as well write our shortcut formula for writing Qn. So Qn is equal to, we can figure out our pattern, 400 minus 400 times 0.25 to the n divided by 0.75. So here is our shortcut formula for Qn. So in other words, after taking your nth pill, this is how much ibuprofen you'll have in your system, assuming that each pill is 400 milligrams and the half-life is 2 hours, and you're taking 1 pill every 4 hours. Okay, so now that we have this Qn, we might wonder, what would happen if I just take 1 400 milligram pill every 4 hours for the rest of my life? So how much ibuprofen will you have in your body after taking a 400 milligram pill every 4 hours? In other words, we're wondering, what is the limit as n goes to infinity of Qn? Okay, so the limit as n goes to infinity of Qn, that's the limit as n goes to infinity of 400 minus 400 times 0.25 to the n over 0.75. Okay, and here, actually, let's simplify this a little bit more. We can see that we have 400 here and a 400 here. So let's go ahead and factor out that 400. So we'll have 400 times 1 minus 0.25 to the n over 0.75. So we can rewrite this limit as a limit as n goes to infinity of 400 times 1 minus 0.25 to the n over 0.75. Okay, so as n goes to infinity, then 0.25 to the n is going to decrease down to 0 because we're taking a number that's less than 1 and raising it to the nth power and sending n to infinity is going to make 0.25 to the n decrease down to 0. So evaluating this limit gives us 400 times 1 minus 0, and then divide by 0.75. Okay, so in other words, we've got 400 divided by 3/4, or 400 times 4/3. So 1600 over 3, or about 533.3. Let's make this an exact milligrams. So if for every 4 hours you took a 400 milligram pill of ibuprofen, then when you're 90 years old, here's how much ibuprofen you'll have left in your body. So if you do this forever and ever and ever, that's how much ibuprofen you'd have left in your body. Okay, so this type of series has a special name. We call this a geometric series. And we can have two types of a geometric series. We can have a finite geometric series, meaning that we're adding up a finite number of pills, or we could have an infinite geometric series. Okay, so a finite geometric series that has the form a plus ax plus ax squared plus ax cubed plus ... plus ax to the n minus 1. And then an infinite geometric series has the form a plus ax squared plus ax cubed plus ... plus ax to the n plus ax to the n plus 1 plus, and then it just keeps on going forever. Okay, so those are our geometric series. And if we want to find the shortcut for calculating a geometric series, if we're looking for the sum of a finite geometric series, then we've got Sn is equal to a plus ax squared plus plus ax to the n minus 1. Our shortcut here is a times 1 minus x to the n divided by 1 minus x. And this is provided x does not equal 1. We can see if we plug in x equals 1, our denominator will be 0, and that'll break our geometric series. Okay, so this is how we can write up our shortcut for a finite geometric series. And in our ibuprofen example, we had a is equal to 400 milligrams. X was equal to 0.25. And those are the only two things that we need. So we have a equals 400, x is 1/4. Okay, so that's our sum for a finite geometric series. Our sum for a infinite geometric series. Our shortcut is, well, we're going to find our shortcut by taking the limit of this. So if we look at the limit as n goes to infinity of Sn, we've got the limit as n goes to infinity of a times 1 minus x to the n over 1 minus x. And this is going to equal, well, we'll have to actually look at a couple different cases. If x is between -1 and 1, or in other words, if the absolute value of x is less than 1, then that means that the limit as n goes to infinity of xn is going to be equal to 0. So if we take a number like a quarter and then raise it to the nth power and send n to infinity, then x to the n is going to decrease down to 0. So since this part's going down to 0, then that means that if we look at the limit as n goes to infinity of a times 1 minus x to the n over 1 minus x, this is going to be equal to a over 1 minus x. Okay, so if x is between -1 and +1, here is our shortcut for our infinite geometric series. And then if x is greater than 1, or more exactly, if the absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 1, then our series will diverge. Because if we look at the limit as n goes to infinity of x to the n, this diverges, it shoots off to infinity. So for example, if we think about like the limit as n goes to infinity of 2 to the n, we know that this is going to shoot off to infinity. Okay, so if we have a geometric series and x is between -1 and 1 and is not equal to 1 and is not equal to -1, then here is our shortcut for our infinite geometric series. If x is less than or equal to -1, or if x is greater than +1, then our series is going to diverge. And that's because our partial sums will have no limit. All right, so that is your introduction to geometric series. Good luck and have fun.